Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Wild Talk. Today we're talking about that incoming update, the May update as we currently call it, because there's still not really an official name beyond that. But within this update, we have at least one major weapon update, potential other weapons either being buffed or even nerfed, big changes to 5 key tier 3 monsters, and very shortly, the first collab event too. So we want to discuss each thing, the little we know about it, what we're actually hoping for based on feedback, and information takes from you guys too. So with that said, let's get started. We learned more about the May update in the director's letter, in which it's addressed briefly. In response to some of the feedback after launch, we're planning to make various adjustments to the game, including weapon balance changes. These will be implemented gradually with each upcoming title update in order to make the game more enjoyable for everyone for a longer period. Now, depending on the content, these changes may take some time to prepare, but what we do know is, for example, they're carefully considering upwards adjustments for the hammer, and then after that, looking at other overall weapon balance adjustments with a goal to implement them either at the end of May update or the second title update in the summer. As they went on to say, some unintentionally overpowered things will be adjusted downwards, but in exchange, they're going to adjust other parts upwards to make a generally balanced update for that weapon. Let's start with the hammer and what we're kind of hoping for and expecting for that. Now, I've talked with a few hammer mains. My girlfriend loves hammer. Zach Cotton, he's a hammer main for the channel. And we got feedback from you guys, as well as taking a look at Reddit's general opinion about it, just to see what the most common aspects of the weapon that are issues that people are wondering or hoping for. What we're expecting here, though, is a proper moveset update, comparable to what we saw from the betas to launch for, say, your Lance, Insect Glaive, Switch Axe, and SNS. All 4 of these felt incredible in comparison to the less than ideal versions in the beta. For hammer then, there's quite a few things to consider. The biggest topic, I would say, is the offset and how it's forced to be behind a triple combo attack, right? Or you have to go into the bludgeoning spin, and that feels quite restrictive compared to the offsets. Like, you've got to build up to it, combo into it, finally get to it. There's kind of insane amount of setup there. Most of your other weapons are able to just kind of throw it out, and some have even better options, like Greatsword, able to throw it out and hold it for a period too. So, as one thing we've said about it before, we like the idea of it being the first 2 offset weapon. One that has an instant use, but maybe a bad wind-up. Like, say you've got the Switch Axe and the Axe offset. That's quite a long wind-up animation, but you can do it immediately. Though I should say that technically, Insect Glaive has 2 ways to use its one offset, in the way that it's the same attack that you use from the ground, or you can use it from the air, but it's the same offset. The point is, we want 2 distinct options for an offset when it comes to hammer. The most commonly requested or suggested specific move to have that offset on was actually the level 2 charge dash, where you do that forward swing attack that can come out pretty quick and is a mobile way to use an attack as hammer. Now, naturally, you won't be able to hold this offset like you can with the other hammer offset, but it can still be set up fast enough and at least has some requirements to work with the other offset rules. It would also be an incredibly satisfying offset. I see common comments about that specific move and how it's strange that it isn't one. It feels like it should be. Next, we have aspects to do with Mighty Charge and, importantly, Big Bang, the Big Bang combo. It is now outdamaged by what is easier and faster combo options. The Mighty Charge can just be done from standstill, where Big Bang 5, you've got 4 Big Bang attacks before that. So one suggestion for this I really like is the idea of there being a special Mighty Charge version as a follow-up after you land a Big Bang 5. Like, you can only do it after successfully hitting Big Bang 5. This results in a faster Mighty Charge, comparable actually to the way that bow focus mode strike, that combos into a fast dragon piercer compared to normal. If they did something cool with that with the Big Bang combo, that'd be awesome and could actually encourage Big Bang 5 being used again, which is kind of needed. Another aspect of Mighty Charge that could be improved is to do with that movement ability that you have. So when you're doing a charge attack, you're building up those charge levels, level 1, 2, 3. You can interrupt that by using this like grapple dash. This is known as the charge step and would be incredible if you could do it for all kinds of different moves to interrupt it. Whether it's, say, when you're doing the swing of Mighty Charge or maybe in the middle of a different combo. It'd be a really nice mobility tool that could work in and around kind of all of Hammer's moveset and options. I think it's a bit of a waste. You can pretty much only do it when you're mid-charging. I've also read issues of players having problems with the range of this weapon, which would definitely help it feel a bit more reliable if slightly increased. One call out is obviously the focus strike on a wound. It's awkwardly short range and causes quite a lot of issues just using the thing. But then there's other aspects of the range of the weapon, like when you actually land an offset, you don't have a special follow-up to then punish with, like many other weapons get a special gap closer mechanic, at the least, if not a cool follow-up. It certainly feels like an offset should instantly combo into something of worth use, like you see with other weapons, but there's nothing that special after an offset, certainly not helping you close the distance, so that could help. Another common complaint I've seen for Hammer is to do with the KO build-up and wanting that to be a lot more noticeable and better for the weapon. If you think about wounds as a concept, other weapons are creating wounds across the body. They're willing and able to go for the tail or the legs or whatever. But the Hammer is hyper-focused on the head for that great KO build-up. It doesn't get as much as it really should there, and it uniquely suffers compared to other weapons that make incredible use out of wounds, where, you know, opening them has a lot more value for other weapons. Wounds are clearly a key part of the gameplay of Wilds, especially with the recent AT Ray having specific tempered wounds that really help you control the fight. Meanwhile, the Hammer's staying at the head as its main aspect, and wounds encourage different targets depending on the context, which goes against the nature of Hammer. So that's definitely kind of a subtle problem. It's one that I'm not sure how they're going to resolve. At very least, greatly increasing the KO build-up of Hammer would feel good. In terms of output, the potential is there to just, you know, improve some of the lower motion values, but obviously that concept is a dangerous one. They have to be careful not to overdo it. A minor request I've seen as well would be more control during this spinning bludgeon, since they want you to combo into it from other attacks, then leading into that offset follow-up. Maybe generate momentum, so you actually move faster than normal while spinning. That'd be amazing. Or if you really wanted to do something pretty intense, you could give it some sort of hyper armor during the spin to protect you while you do it, to make it a lot more worth engaging with. Finally, aerial gameplay or aerial spin attacks of the Hammer are awesome, certainly in World and Rise, but nowhere near as good or reliable in fact in Wilds. It's quite a lot harder to do because there's just less sliding opportunities as one example. So it'd be nice to see a return of those aerial spin attacks and a more reliable way to do them as an option. So those are the biggest things that I've seen for Hammer that I think are cool and interesting suggestions. If you guys have any suggestions for what you'd like to see change in Hammer, let us know. But what about the other weapon updates? We know for a fact that they're coming. We just don't know whether it's going to be in the May update or say TU2, as well as future title updates as well. What we could expect from that, in my opinion, would be the hunting horn, as I've mentioned before. It does suffer in terms of output compared to the other weapons, as we've seen. But a part of that is the way that they're stuck to certain monster weapons, because the artian weapons and the melody options on those aren't really that great. This could easily be solved by letting them attach their own melodies to an artian weapon during the craft, giving you greater control and greatly improving the customization of that weapon, which would be interesting. In regards to other low performers, you have things like bow and dual blades, but in my opinion, that's more of an issue with element output rather than the weapon's output and its moveset and issues of that nature. I think they're in a good place, and you can definitely see that when we see runs where they're using heroics. But normal players don't use that skill. So where we see those weapons shine is when element values are higher, like the Zoshia speedrun rankings. They were noticeable, especially bow. Maybe they'll downscale some of the top performers, like insect glaive as an obvious choice. But as we've seen, they will buff up other aspects, like 1 or 2 attacks doing really well compared to the rest. We can expect them to nerf those and then buff up the rest of the kit. Otherwise, we have the Apex buff and Gore Magala being changed too. We know that they're going to be 8-star versions of the monsters. They're going to have better rewards in the form of better relic potential. So your tempered arkveld, your Zoshia, your tempered Mizutsune, they have that double reward relic potential where the rest just don't. We should expect that in these 8-star versions of the Apexes and Gore from here on. Other changes are coming in the form of wound resistance, increased health, and multiplayer scaling changes. The biggest change there is going to be wound resistance, which is going to result in less control and interruption of the monster and what it's actually doing. Meaning it's going to be more aggressive and more of a threat because of that. We're definitely going to feel it, and I think most people are quite scared of what's going to happen with Gore, which has me quite excited. One popular question that I see come up from this though is that will the 7-star versions actually stay in the game? At first, I figured, yeah, why not, right? But that might not be the case. If the 7-star versions remained, we'd basically only see the 8 stars as a rare spawn, or at least after a lot of rest spam to see them. They want them to feel harder, they want this to be a noticeable update, they want them to be more challenging and rewarding. So, if they leave the 7-star version in, that would get in the way of that. And, if you think about it, there is no 7-star version of Tempered Mizutsune. So, why would there be 7-star versions of the 5 that are changing? With that in mind, I think it's just going to be the 8-star. We had a comment on a recent video talking about these topics by the user Arg, saying that if these 8-star upgraded monsters are getting balance changes, including wound resist, but say the current 8-star version of Arkveld doesn't get the same attention, then it will remain the same that Tempered Arkveld is the best farming target, which they don't want. So that would definitely be an oversight. Hopefully they've thought about that, but they haven't mentioned it yet. On that note, will they be changing the elemental values of these 8-star versions of the Tempered monsters? I do hope they improve their element hit zones to make them more vulnerable to it. That'd definitely be great, but the thing is, since they've not mentioned that either, I'm also not expecting that. In regards to the first collab event, I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to come at the exact same time as the May update, but it is possible. What is that first collab event then? Well, there are a few good contenders, but it certainly seems like it's going to be Street Fighter after all for this first one. This post was put out by the official social medias, a palico claw print in the style of Street Fighter. Now, there's been quite a few Street Fighter collabs going on in other games very recently, and a big one was, say, the Overwatch one. And of course, Monster Hunter has had their own Street Fighter collabs in the past, so it makes sense. Though the reaction has been relatively negative from what I've seen on at least Twitter, because they've done a lot of these recently and in the past. But personally, I think if it's good, it doesn't matter. In regards to other Capcom collabs we expect to see, is likely going to be something like a Devil May Cry event, since they had the recent anime on Netflix. I also think Dragon's Dogma 2 is a high potential one, because it was a big release for them not that long ago. In my opinion though, I want them to use this first collab event to be a way to get new layered equipment that we've not seen before. In the past, it was one of the few ways, at least before layered armor and such was commonplace, that you would get a layered set for the first time. What we need in Wilds right now is layered weapons. We have none. The collab event could be the first place that they introduce a layered weapon of any kind. So hopefully that happens. Finally, here's just a couple cool ideas I saw from the comments of the last time I talked about this stuff. One came from the user Enslaved, saying that since we're not getting new weapons with, the Tempered update or Arch-Tempered monsters, it'd be great if they introduced a way to drop a material that lets you upgrade gem or rather decoration slots on your weapons. It would give you a reason to farm them long term and give existing weapons a way to compete with Artians. I think it's a great idea. Another comment came by someone called Fusion Knight, saying they'd like to see a resource that allows us to upgrade those decoration slots. So instead of a 3-2-1, you could change it to a 3-3-1 or a 3-2-2. Maybe it wouldn't be Artian completely, but it would close the gap. I love the idea of introducing new challenges that have a relevant reward, and being able to change the monster weapons to have slightly better decoration slots would go a long way. Make a lot of people happy, I would say. But when should we expect the news for all of this? Well, Wednesday 21st is the currently last known event quest content, at least officially. There's going to be more than that, of course, but we need more information. So we should expect more information very, very soon. In fact, in the next couple days, I'm expecting the May patch information to be dropped. And we think the patch itself will probably come the week after the 21st, so there's a good chance then it will be on the 27th, or roughly around that date as our reasonable guess. But more information should be right around the corner. For now though, that is everything I've got. I hope that was interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys' response and maybe your ideas about all of this. Hopefully the May update is a good one while we wait for title update 2. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.